Everyone. Thank you for being here. Today is the release of Silhouettes, James Declan Powers' first album, My Son. And we're going to be talking about it. Thank you for being here. This is exciting. So, this album is something that I got to witness much as, you all are getting to hear it. I got to hear it. I didn't participate in recording it or performing it or writing it or anything. That was all him. So this has been something that has been something I've experienced much as an audience member, much as you are going to experience it as well. So this is this is like kind of like a Stevie Wonder, Music of My Mind album where you've done all the instruments.
Yeah.
And there's a little bit of a story behind this, isn't there? Do you want to share with us what the story is behind this album? How did this come to be?
Yeah. Well, I touched upon it in the Benny J interview that I did with Ben, and I basically the original like version of the album was a soundtrack for A Christmas Carol, the Charles Dickens thing, and it was a play for a local theater here. And basically, what happened was I did doing like I think like my second play ever or something, and I was just wanted to like try it out. So I went there, and I kind of felt like, oh, I memorize like these few lines and that's it. I'm like, I want to do more. I want to challenge myself. So I basically walked up to the director and was like, hey, can I do the soundtrack for the play? And she literally looked at me and was like, wait, what? A soundtrack? And I'm like, yeah, I'm a musician. I can totally do this. And so she said, yeah, it's like, if you deliver, then sure. And so she told me what she kind of wanted, and I was like, started studying like Parisian waltzes, like I mentioned in the other interview. And after that, it just took off, and I finished it. It was awesome, but it wasn't like a mastered, like polished, like thing. It was more of like that was just for the parts to play for that thing, for like the dance scene and this thing and that. But it wasn't really quite finished. And I have so much music that I haven't finished that it's like always like giving me anxiety constantly. Like, oh, I have I forgot about this album I made. And I was like, I have to finish something this year because it was the end of the year. It was like Christmas time, and I was like, this is like I have to do something. And so after Christmas and after New Year's, I started kind of like looking at all the songs and the albums I wanted to finish, and I was really thinking it was apt and very very poignant to my musical journey was that soundtrack and those songs that were half finished, that it was very much like it went very much into like the beginning of my music. And when I started creating music, because it started on piano at my great grandma's house, and I stood that piano right there is my great great grandmother's piano. And so like that was like the beginning. And so I thought, you know what, I'm gonna do a classical album, like an instrumental classical album on piano, but like make it really unique.
Which is surprising.
Yeah. And it's like the thing is that I wrote a song for my very good friend Addison for her birthday. And Addison basically like the meaning of the name is Adam's son. But and funny enough, her dad is Adam. And so I was like, oh, I'll call it Adam's daughter. And so basically I like recorded that, and it was like a stripped down version. And then all of a sudden I was like, I'm finishing this album this month. And so I just crushed it. I like went all the way through it, and I like started making all these new discoveries. I started like so much influence by like Steve Reich, Philip Glass, and like this like creating like this orchestra with all these little pieces and creating things that are like it's like not it's like polychords and polyrhythms where there's like a dun dun dun, there's like a dun dun dun, and you can add all these different things, and it was so much fun. And that's like the story of the album. It's like it started from something that it was like it's completely out of my comfort zone, and then I was like it turned into something much more personal where it was like about the new year and the growth that came from that, and like a resolution to actually finish. And like it was like I wrote it about, like I was constantly we like moved like twice in Texas. So like we moved to like Bastrop, right? And that was more near Austin. And then we moved to here in San Marcos. And so I basically like wrote a lot of these like I started playing piano more as we moved, and then like right as we got here, I started that theater play, and like all of this music came out of that new experience, the new house, the new place, and I think that's like the spirit of the album. Yeah.
Well, I think if anyone's watching your Instagram, they're gonna be surprised because they're gonna be maybe expecting you to be ripping it on guitar.
Well, that's the next album. That's the next album.
Right, right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, we're looking forward to that. What style is the next album, do you think, going to be?
I have so many stuff. I don't even know. I think honestly, it's like I wanted to make a dance record. Cause like that's what I told Ben, and like it's so much fun to make dance music, and it's not like like it's more of like a Bruno Mars like Daft Punk kind of like Get Lucky and like that kind of thing, a lot more stripped down, not as like electronic. But yeah, that's what I want to do as a dance album.
What's this album like?
This album, it's like I said in another interview, it's very much like the Steve Reich music for 18 musicians, and then like Philip Glass Works, um, that one song on The Last Temptation of Christ, It Is Accomplished by Peter Gabriel, that song. Yeah, that's another like that kind of like that kind of strain of classical music. That's what I've been channeling with this album. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's very awesome. So, how long have you been playing piano?
Since I was 3 or 4. It's when Uncle Tom taught me the D minor. Yeah, and since then.
Did you have you taken extensive lessons?
No, not at all. No, I like literally he showed me the chord, and then it was like, I think he was playing like a song from the Final Fantasy soundtrack, and he was like, "Come on, I'll show you," and I was like, "Really?" I was like, "Okay." So shape, and he showed me the shape, and he showed me they can go anywhere on the piano, but he said this is D minor, and so I was like, "Okay, cool," and he's like, "So do you want to learn the song?" I was like, "Nah." And I basically just moved the shape around a bunch, and then I was listening to like Billy Joel. I was obsessed with Billy Joel as a child, and then over the years, I just tell myself everything. It's like I always learn everything from shapes, and so like it was just a try out as a shape, and so I just moved it everywhere, and then that's how I learned piano. Was I just was like, oh, it's just a shape. It's easy, you just like have to just get the rhythm right, and that's how I started, and then it evolved, and I've been constantly trying new things. And then now that we've finally I think we finally settled more. I've been playing piano a lot more because it's like in the studio. Because usually we moved like a few times, and when I was in California, the studio was outside of the house, and the piano was inside the house in the living room, and so it wasn't like in the creative space, but now it is. And so I think I've been writing a lot more because of that.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So what inspired the album? Because I mean the cover is really awesome. The silhouettes, the beach, the different colors, the sun.
Yeah.
It's really adventurous and at the same time calming.
Yeah. Well, and what inspired the album cover was probably my California trip. I took a trip like 4 weeks, 6 weeks ago to California to record with my Benny J and Addison at their house, right? And we have this little band called the Late Night Drivers, and that's awesome. And we actually started like hanging out during 2020. We were on Zoom. We would constantly like passing like music back and forth, and we were like constantly making music remotely together. And we finally like got together in person, and we're like the best of friends. And so I went there, and I went to the beach, and I miss the ocean so much. It's so inspiring, and just like the cliffs, that's just how stark the vista. It's just gorgeous, and especially those colors, the yellows and the blues. And so I got back from that trip, and I took all these pictures, and a lot of the album, like the different silhouettes, were older pictures and newer pictures. And so after that, I was like, you know what? Like, I want to tell a story of like the move from California to Texas, and like those older pictures of me when I was like when we first arrived, on Guerneville, and like we went out to Jenner. Like those are like the one of the more in the back silhouettes was one of those, you know. And so there's like different silhouettes of my time there. It's like my
Mm.
favorite place on earth. So like that's I think that's because it's talking about like the album is about like like a new resolution, a new beginning.
It feels like silhouettes through time
Yeah.
because of the opacity. It does feel like that.
Yeah, it was so funny because I thought it was gonna be one picture, like just one silhouette, and I was dragging with my dad into Keynote, and I was like trying to resize it, and I'm like, Dad, I don't know how to resize it to, to exact square. It's weird, and so because he like is constantly making thumbnails for his YouTube channel, you need to subscribe to him. But this is the thing is that like it was like I was resizing it, and then I was like, we touched the opacity, and I could see both silhouettes, and I was like, Dad, wait, this is it. And then so we started messing around, and then we came up with some like really really cool ideas. But then finally, I like really got the exact collage for it, and I think it was like in a 2 days time. I think a week before the album release. I didn't even get like at the album art yet. I was like, I'm releasing on May 1st. I'll get the album art later. And then I finally like slapped together the album art. I was like, I got it. I can market it now. And then that's how it came to be. But yeah, it was perfect with the story of the album. It was like just this, like just a moment. Like it was so like just like accidental. I think it's another word for the album. It was very like the flow of consciousness thing. It wasn't like very purposeful. Like Ben was talking about, like, oh, like, what did you choose the time signatures? Like, what were you thinking about? It's like for a few songs, I was thinking about how it stacked things, but it really was like, a very just improvised, thing.
What do you want to accomplish with this album?
Well, I really wanted to take from Philip Glass and Steve Reich and like all that stuff and make it new again because it feels like it's such a beautiful style of music, and it's also I listen to a lot of classical music nowadays, and it feels like I love classical music so much, but I wanted to make it different. I wanted to like push it forward. And that's why I was talking to Ben is that I produced it in a completely different way than regular classical music because it's quieter. Like regular classical music has like huge dynamics in the mastering stage, but I tried to produce it loud and have it really clear, but still have that nuance. And I really wanted to. I think this album I really wanted to show like my piano style because I never show that, and that's like 'cause that's a huge part. Like it's what it began with. And I feel like it's like I wanted to accomplish with this album something that's never been done before with classical music. I wanted to do something completely different. Like not, I think I did that.
Well, there's so many reminiscent influences. I feel like there is that Philip Glass, but there's also like the feel of production that you would get from like Good Vibrations era Beach Boys kind of thing at
That was a
times.
huge okay. When we're talking about like influences, like okay, Pet Sounds. Like I was listening to that the whole time I was in California, and then I came back and then I like mixed and like finished writing the album. So like
Mm.
that's a huge part of it was that album. Like, I love Pet Sounds, and that was like such a huge part of the arrangement actually. Because like Philip Glass, it was about part of the writing. Same with like all the other influences, but about like the arrangement was definitely a lot about Pet Sounds, trying to make that wall of sound that they got. Yeah.
Awesome. What do you want folks to take away from all this, from this album? What do you want folks to experience and get out of this album?
I think I want it to. Well, it depends on the person, but like if I'm talking about like other musicians or like a starting musician, I want it to be inspiring. Like show it's possible.
Mm.
You know, because it's like if I could hear something like that, like new right now, like somebody making music that's like that new and really cool. Like I would. That's like it would be the coolest and most inspiring. I would like have to write music after I heard an album. It'd be like
Speaking of specific things that are unique sounding, do you want to talk a little bit about some of the unique techniques that were used to create the sounds on some
Yeah.
of these songs, like Redemption's plucking sound?
Yeah, so you've probably seen those YouTube videos that go viral, like Peter Buck and all those guys who like perform like Despacito on the piano, and then they'll like have a looper pedal, and they'll sometimes stick their hand inside the piano and mute it at times. And but I found that cool, but I wanted to do it in an original way. And so I started working, like I said, with the Philip Glass, like machines, like the dun 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 dun, and stacking different rhythms,
Uh-huh.
but muting the piano. And so I used that muting and those vibrations at times to make their own chords. Like you can hear on Redemption how the plucking, the dun 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 dun, there's actually multiple notes happening. It's like it's very interesting. I stacked things and it sounds really, really cool. It was all accidental. Those two takes, and I unmuted both of them, and they sounded great together. And so that was that was just completely unplanned. But a lot of the stuff I did was I would use like a pick to like at the end of like Redemption. It's like this harpsichord sound because I wanted a harpsichord so bad. I was like, I need a harpsichord on this, but I can't get it. Like I tried the MIDI version of it. I can't make this sound good. There's no possible way. And so I was like, how can I get it? I was like, fine, I'm gonna get a pick. So I got a pick. I stuck my arm in the piano, and I came up with a melody. And then I basically what I did is I layered the octaves. So I had like a high octave, which is very, very thin because you have to layer a lot. And then you have to do the octave down. And then the way my piano is built, it's very hard to do. I only did like a 2 octave range because it was just the way it's structured. It's very hard to pluck the lower strings.
So just to clarify, what you're saying is that when you are holding the note down on a piano and not using it to strike the string, you're leaving it open. So when you reach your arm into it, you can pluck it and have it sound like a giant guitar.
Mm-hmm.
When I first heard this, it was so unique because it's not a harpsichord sound,
Yeah, it's very
but
steely.
it's very steely and it sounds huge.
Yeah,
And so instead of most people might not even know that a piano is a string instrument.
yeah,
And so especially when it's compact like this. And so when you're striking the key, you're hammering it, but to use the key to not strike it, the omission of striking, so that you can be inside the piano and pluck it.
yeah.
I'd never thought of that as
And
a
like,
way to write music and capture sound, but it's so incredible because it's such a giant sound box that that song Redemption,
yeah,
it doesn't have other songs that we can easily compare it to because of the sound of it.
yeah.
It's very
And that's
interesting.
that's why when mastering it, I was trying to find references, and I was like, it's very hard because I had a lot of cool influences, but it's not what the sound of the album in my head. I had a plan. Like I knew what it would sound like. Not maybe like not all the parts or the writing per se, but I knew like vaguely the feeling and what it should feel like to listen to. And so basically, I basically decided 85 dB was my ballpark, just around that 85 decibels. That was a good average, and I'm gonna bring it up to that. And the color of the mastering and the color of the finishing process would all be from like just the perspective of how I think it should sound. And then I compared it to a lot of like great classical music, and I was happy with the result because I was like, no, this is really great production. It fits with like it holds its own, with other really well produced classical music, but it's what I wanted.
What kind of context do you feel like this music would fit into?
I think I think it could fit into film
Hmm.
very, very easily. Like it tells a story, but also can it creates a feeling that can create an image that it because you can kind of like for me when I hear the album, I can see the ocean, I can see like the mountains, and I can really like I can see what it felt to write that and like smell I don't know if you hear a song and you can like smell the rain. That happens to me all the time. But the thing is that I feel like to translate that to film would be super really cool, because like it would help. It would enhance the scene, because if you can feel it and see it and smell it, imagine paired with like a beautiful story on film. It would be really cool.
Mm. I feel like there's a lot of story in the album itself.
Mm-hmm.
You blend a lot of different textures that normally we wouldn't find in the same context.
Yeah.
So someone listening to it might not even detect that you used electric guitar on it.
Yeah, me and Ben were talking about that. Yeah, I totally turned up my amp all the way and just did like crazy like sonic youth, like just like feedback, and it sounds great. You just pitch correction and a little bit of reverb and like mixing, and it sounds super super cool. Yeah, and also I think the one of the things I used, and like I said in the other interview, is that, dude, Logic MIDI is so good. It's so good when you really know how to use it. It's just unparalleled. I love it. It's like the Celeste sound, like that bell thing, like I was telling. It's so good. It's crazy. Yeah.
So, looking towards the future, is the next album going to be piano or guitar or both?
Both. Yeah. It's like, honestly, I have so many albums I'm working on that I say I want to do this dance album, but something might just happen. I might just be like, this is the thing. This feels so good. Like, and I just like blast through it. And if that happens, I'll let you know.
So, is the dance album focused on guitar or just dance in general?
Um, it's more focused on guitar because I'm pulling influence from like Nile Rodgers, Corey Wong, and that kind of thing. Yeah. And also, I think I'm also pulling influence from like a lot of like the Kills,
Mm-hmm.
because like, and like Modest Mouse, of course, like it's a huge, huge, huge influence. Like Isaac Brock's playing.
What's so wild is that this album is so divergent from those spaces. And I mean, for me, it's like I love driving to this album. I love doing research and reading, and even kind of like working out or meditating. It's a really versatile album
Yeah.
because it's story like, it's soundtrack like, but there's no words, and it's inspiring and enthralling, but it's not directing your thoughts. It's open. It's like an open
Yeah,
space.
and I think that's where it came from. It's like a stream of consciousness, like I was saying, is that when you listen to it, I think you can start. Because I even when I listened to it, okay, I stopped listening to it for like 2 weeks just because I got sick of it. Like I love it so much, but when you're like mixing it for hours, you need to take a break.
Yeah, give
But
your ears a
yeah,
break.
because I love it. It's amazing, but I wanted to like have it special for the album, so I can like listen to it all the time when like the album was released, so I can like go on iTunes and be like, yeah, it's my song. I just added it to my library. Yeah, I just
That's
download.
that.
Yeah, it's like my favorite thing. I like.
That's smart.
Yeah, but yeah, I like it. It helps. I have to think of things all the time, and it's like a stream of consciousness, like you're saying. You can like, it's it's such a relaxing thing. It relaxes like my mind and allows me to think thoughts and actually like to reflect. And I think
Hmm.
it's a reflective album, but it allows you to add your own story to it.
Where can folks listen to this and have it download into their subconsciousness?
Everywhere, basically, like Spotify, iTunes. I'm releasing it on SoundCloud late, so right after this, I'm releasing on SoundCloud because SoundCloud does not connect to TuneCore
Okay.
and my distributors, so it's like I have to like,
Manual.
yes, manually. So I forgot about that. So not on SoundCloud, but in like 30 minutes it will be. But yeah, everywhere else you can find it. Um, and it's taking a little bit of while to update to Instagram. So on like Instagram, if you want to like put it on your post and use it as your background music, it will be like a day or two, maybe even tonight. It might update.
How can we find you?
How can I find? Okay, you can find me on my Instagram, James Declan Powers. Nobody has my name, so it's literally typing in anywhere. And the guy with the guitar, purple, like mine. You see it on YouTube. Yeah, that's where you find me. Basically, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Instagram is where I'm mainly active, though. Yeah, and TikTok. But yeah, mostly Instagram.
Sounds good. All right, everyone. Thank you for
Yeah.
being here. Thank you for listening to Silhouettes, James Declan Powers' first album.
Yeah.
We're so excited here, and subscribe and like this video and share it with your friends and spread the music because
Yeah.
it's incredible. It's an album that is it's an album that you just have to hear to really understand. It's and each person's going to have their own kind of like interpretation of what the story of it means because it's so open like that, but it is also so reflective. I think that's the
Yeah.
best way to put it. It's the most reflective album. That's why I listen to it when I'm driving, so that or when I'm writing or reflecting in the day, because it helps me to process my thoughts. It's really fascinating that you would create something that would help organize your thoughts, you know,
Yeah.
for other people, you know, through music.
Yeah.
But that's exactly what you did. So everyone, go now, Spotify, iTunes, check it out, download it, favorite it, follow the artist, James Declan Powers. Do it tonight. Tell your friends. Thank you so much.
Yeah. And have a wonderful evening.